Welcome back to the Working Audio Tools podcast, the audio mixing podcast documenting mine and Paul Third's journey to becoming full-time mix engineers. Each week we constructively critique each other's mixes of tracks that we've been working on, and we also intersperse the episode with interviews with top audio professionals and pick their brains, delivering the gold and the goods to you guys on this very podcast. Available on YouTube if you're watching, and Spotify and all streaming platforms if you're just listening. This week we have a mix from Paul Third himself, the audio king himself, which is going to be his mix of James Dupre's Another Love Song, which I believe is the Rate My Mix Produced Like a Pro competition that has just ended. I'm not sure what the results are as of yet. You have heard my first mix of this before. I then revisited that mix and I submitted that for the competition and realised I'd ballsed the low end up massively because I'm still getting used to the subwoofers.
Rookie man.
It was, but I was still getting used to the subwoofers, new subwoofers in the studio. Overdid it. Whatever.
Excuses. Jesus.
I know.
Ed with excuses every week, eh? Fuck's sake.
And then I've redone it, and we're going to listen to that later as well. So it is, in fact, a mixed comparison, but we are going to focus on Mr. Third's genius here.
Ooh.
Paul, how did you find the track?
I found it was very well recorded, and a less is more approach. Really, it was just about getting the drums to sound the way I wanted it, and how I was able to get the chorus to lift. The guitars were well recorded, and again, it was finding that balance between the ribbon and the 57 and trying to just get that right tonal balance. And then the low end didn't really need a lot at all, to be fair. It was just I stuck it through kick shaper, a little bit of the D mud, so again just shortened the wavelength of it a little bit. Job done. Very minimal moves, usual thing for me. Just mixed it the way I've always mixed it. Ran through my 2-bus template. It'll be interesting because this is the first mix I've done in a while, so I wanted to test my ears, because normally I'll do like a few references just to kind of be like, is it sounding okay? But if I've got chances like this, I like to do mixes where it's like, right, let's just test your ears. Let's just see like where I'm just naturally sitting. So yeah, I'm quite happy with it. Hopefully it's going to turn out okay when Ed listens to it. But this is why we do this podcast. Okay, so let's get straight into it and let's test Mr. Third's ears and see if my ears are better tuned than they were 6 months ago.
What we'll do first is listen to a rough mix, just like a minute of it, just so you guys hear what we were working with, and then we'll go into Paul's mix. That was the rough mix of James Dupre's Another Love Song. Now let's get into Paul's genius mix.
Nothing on this highway but signs and lines, and too much time to think of you. I keep changing stations every half a mile, but I still don't hear the truth. From my point of view, the world don't need another love song. Too many love songs don't come true. The world don't need another love song, and I don't need another lie from you. Forever sounds simple when it's wrapped up tight in a pretty rhyme and melody. Even when you said you loved me all your life, it was just another fantasy. 'Cause in reality, the world don't need another love song. Too many love songs don't won't change the fact the world don't need another love song. Too many love songs don't come true. The world don't need another love song, and I don't need another love song. Too many love songs don't come true. The world don't need another love song, and I don't need another. No, I don't need another. No, I don't need another line from you.
DroKid sponsor the Working Audio Tools podcast, and you can get 30% off your first year's subscription using the VIP link in the YouTube video description and podcast show notes. DroKid makes distribution of your music easy with unlimited uploads, and you get to keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. Join over 1 million artists who rely on DroKid to get their music into Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all other streaming platforms now and in the future. The new DroKid app is available on iOS. Go and download it from the App Store now. From here, you can upload new releases. You can see your DroKid earnings and withdraw these earnings. You can view and share your hyperfollow links. You can check your streaming statistics from Spotify and Apple, and even add and edit lyrics and song titles. So keep track of your releases on the move with the new DroKid app, available on iOS. Download it from the App Store now. All right, Paul Third's mix of James Dupre's Another Love Song. I liked it. It's good, man. Now, I checked that. I listened to it on my speakers first time, and I made some notes, and then I checked it on my headphones, on my Neumann NDH30s, and the mix made sense on headphones.
Right, okay.
On speakers, there's a couple of things, but it translates really well on headphones, on my open backs. On my speakers, just for those who don't know me and my setup, they are PSI audio speakers, A23Ms. On the baritone, did you saturate or distort that more than it was?
Remind me what the baritone was about. I don't know.
Bow.
Oh yeah, that bit. Yeah. I just in my head I've just got it as like the lead riff because I'm a guitarist. That's the way I think. Yeah, I did. I saturated it on purpose because I just felt it was. I don't know. I felt a bit clean and just a bit like I just needed to be more. I thought like a guitarist, and it feels like it needs a boost pedal, right? And if you're a guitarist, then everybody will know what I mean. Where, like, if you go into a solo, you'll normally just go to a little bit of a boost, maybe like a TS9, like a Tube Screamer or something like that, and just to kind of give it a little bit more mid-range and a little bit more grit and just kind of make it poke out a little bit.
When I did live sound, I would always tell people 3 or 4 dB is the magic number for boost pedals. Some people go as high as 6, and they get turned down. On speakers, the vocals were very forward,
right? Okay.
Which is a very country thing, so it's not necessarily wrong. I just felt it was slightly too much, but I think possibly highlighted on my speakers. They were quite kind of forward at around 1.6, 2K-ish. Was that intentional? Or was that a ceilings of sound thing?
It's pretty hard because, I mean, see that same thing in the vocals. Do you hear it on the Neumanns?
No.
See, this is the thing.
It's definitely where there's a lot of activity and detail on the PSIs.
Right, because I think that's something that I've always kind of thought we need to be a little bit careful about, because sometimes having too much of that detail could sometimes be, I don't know, I remember when me and Emma first got the Nanda Nanos and we were like, Jesus, never heard this amount of detail in my fucking life in headphones. Like, it's so much detail.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's like, it's hard for me to comment because you've not heard it on both systems. So I'm like, I get it, you've got a really expensive setup, but I'm like, you've not heard it on the headphones. So I'm like, I don't know, I would need other people because you've listened to it on speakers and you've listened to it on headphones, because it's not in the headphones, I'm like, well, which one do I kind of trust? You know what I mean? And
it's a translation issue then, isn't it?
Well, I listened to it on the Calais and didn't get that. However, obviously Ed's got a much more expensive system than those ultra near fields. But I mean, I listened to it on ultra near fields and I thought the translation was pretty good, so I walked away pretty happy. to be honest with you. So I'm not really, I don't know, I don't hear it, because if it was something that was annoying, I would have obviously took it out. So I don't know. In the comments, this is where we need yous watching. In the comments, tell us.
This is where we will get opinions whether we ask for them or not, Paul.
I know. But tell us in the comments down below, do you hear maybe like a kind of like a honky kind of 1.5K in the vocals?
I feel like it's not you usually get an absolutely flawless vocal sound, and I felt like there was maybe a little bit of warmth, kind of low mids missing from it. And it wasn't quite the chef's kiss you usually deliver.
I don't know. I think
it's not bad though. It is good. Don't get me wrong. I'm being hypercritical. Obviously, it's the job.
I almost think it's his voice. To be honest with you, I think that's his.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. Yeah,
I think it's an interesting point to make. You would think that if whatever you hear in headphones, you're going to hear in speakers and vice versa. Especially again because many people rate those Neumann headphones a lot. So. Yeah, it's just interesting. And it doesn't really, it sounds bad, right? Because obviously I trust Ed and his PSI setup because I've heard it. It sounds fucking amazing. But I'm always more focused on the headphone translation because I know that nobody's going to be listening to this mix on the system that Ed's got, like nowhere even close. So I'm like, well, the Neumanns are pretty, I mean, how much are the Neumanns, Ed? Like, the 300 nod or something like that? Or the more expensive?
I think they're about £450.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I would say that probably if you can't hear them on the Neumanns, probably most people, I don't know, I'd utter to say most people won't hear it. So I'm not that fussed, but I do think it's always great to have Ed's like super top end setup because that is showing you every detail. Too much detail, can it be a bit of a bad thing? Because you're like, I could hear it, but then I'm like, well, is everybody else going to hear it? And it's that thing where how do you balance that, eh?
Yeah, and it's very much a three-way speaker thing versus a two-way speaker thing. These are details I didn't hear on two-way speakers and haven't heard on other two-way speakers. But three-way speakers just give a little bit more definition. I think everything had its space very nicely. Right. I thought good use of depth with the keys and the synths. The Hammond organ. Good use of depth with the toms. I felt like they were resonating, cavernous in the background.
Lots of reverb.
Personally, as a drummer, maybe slightly too far back, but I was thinking what you were doing was creating a good front to back depth as if you were placing the instruments on a stage.
Yeah.
Which I know is something you consider when you're mixing, and I think you executed that well. There's a lovely lift into the chorus. You can hear some subtle reverbs coming in, particularly on the guitars, which, as always, sounded lovely. Beautiful reverb on the slide guitar. That's such a nice line, and you made that sound really good.
And no, what? It wasn't reverb. It was actually delay. What I did was I panned the slide to the right, and I panned the delay all the way to the left. So it was giving you that fake stereo thing. And it was one of those where there was already a bit of reverb in it, but I just think the delay, just like, it's like the delay and the reverb kind of blended together, and it just, I didn't need the reverb. It just kind of did that. I don't know how you gesticulate that to the people that's listening and not watching. I don't know. I don't know what that fucking is.
We gesticulate a lot on this show. It's an X-rated YouTube video. Normal rated Spotify stream. Good bass sound, nice relationship with the kick drum. So on speakers, my main issue was just the balance of the vocals. I felt like they were a bit forward. But when I put them onto my Neumanns, the mix immediately made sense.
Okay.
And nothing popped out, and it was an enjoyable listen.
Come on, the snare, right? Come on, we always need to do the snare, Ed. You've always got to tell me what's your opinions on the snare.
I was going to go easy on you, but as you insist, right?
I need to know.
I wanted more crack out of it. It was as if the fundamental for you was maybe 800 hertz, and I wanted more snappy kind of 1 to 3K. Did you put your usual 10K in the snare? There was a bit of top end fizz, I think.
Yeah, so what I did is I only added it to the acoustic because I think I can't remember if there was 2 samples that Joe had given, and I just used the samples Joe had put in. But what I did was I did a 10K shelf on an Eve just on the top snare. So the samples aren't getting it because, again, if you add it to them all on the snare bus, I think it could just sound a bit too much. So I just added it in to taste, and I just tried to get that kind of top end just to sit right. So I was a bit like, I always struggle with the top end of the snare because it's always something that's like, you could have it too bright and then have it too dull, and it's a very, very big sweet spot for me. I'm very picky with that. Something I always try and do. So I think I got it in close to like a sweet spot.
Now, did you do your usual and delete the bottom snare mic?
No, I kept it. I've been keeping after Ed advised me to keep the bottom snare. And to be fair, I think, when
it's kind of a condition of us remaining friends, if I'm honest.
And it does, because it adds that kind of rattle, does it? It adds like...
Yeah, but you got to be careful with the balance. My bottom snares are nearly always 5 or 6 dB lower than the main snare.
I've always got the bottom snare always quite low. What I do is I just bring it up to, I kind of get that rattle, that extra little bit of crack, and I'm like, it's just enough. It's just a sweet spot. Eh?
Did you gate the bottom snare mic? Because obviously that bleeds with all you get as much bottom snare as you do kick drum mic.
No, I don't think I did actually. I know I did the kick. I did the snare using melded, because we did a whole video about it, so you should remember. And I used the melded M drum leveler that's got the gate in it. I don't think I did the bottom snare. I might have, but I don't know. I think what I like about the bottom snare is because I've got it so low in the mix, it's quite good for kind of keeping the ghost notes in. So again, the way that it depends on the drummer, but again, if you're using M drum leveler, right, and you've kind of got it going almost like it's nearly program dependent. Yeah. Sometimes you can kind of I set M drum leveler in a way where it's still getting the quieter notes. But sometimes you can get those little ghost notes, and I always find that the bottom snare could sometimes just be that kind of extra way of just kind of keeping those kind of lower notes in there. So,
as always, Paul, a good mix.
Thank you very much.
I like what you did. Let's have a listen to my third version of this mix. I have to say, I've listened to on YouTube once or twice, and the YouTube algorithm and compression destroys the sound compared to how listening to the full WAV. But while I think about it, there's a good tool called Sound Toggle for people who aren't aware of this, where you can post A/B versions of your mixes or masters, dry mix and then your mix, or a mix and then with your mastering on at the toggle of a switch, hence called Sound Toggle. It's a really good tool, and it hosts lossless full quality nearly went MP3s, lossless full quality WAVs. So your clients can hear your genius audio in its full splendor without YouTube destroying it. What are your current thoughts on YouTube compression, Paul?
I've done a whole video testing it, and to be honest, it doesn't do what everybody thinks it does. It's not as bad. You've got to be careful of your bandwidth, right? So if you don't have a good bandwidth, then what can happen is it's got different codecs. So, and sometimes what it'll do is it'll have a low pass filter at around 15K. And again, normally you'll find that if you've got a really shit internet connection. But when I tested it, I put a sweep through it. So I put a sweep, uploaded a video, and what I found was it was actually Filmora that was the issue. And it was something that many people forget, is that that's the middleman, right? So you've got your DAW audio, then if you put that audio through your video editor, and your video editor is doing something before it gets to YouTube, again, it is something that people forget. And what I didn't know was that Filmora was actually distorting and aliasing. I found a way around it, and then now it doesn't do it at all. I check it periodically every so often, because there was another guy that made a video saying, oh yeah, YouTube aliases and distorts. And when I did my test, I was like, all right, you've really made yourself look like a tit now, because I know it's your video editor. And it's something he completely disregarded. I tested it in as many ways that I could. There is a slight bit of compression that goes on. I can't remember what I compared, but I compared the two sweeps side by side, and then I did an A/B, and you could hear that there was a sound to it. It's not compression the way that we think of compression with an attack and release.
No, but almost like a file compression. So
yes,
degrading the resolution, which might be at the 15K shelf and aliasing. Yeah.
So that only happens if you've got a shitty video editor. There is no aliasing. It's only the low pass filter at 15K. That's if you listen to the audio on the preview screen, like on your YouTube editor or studio or whatever, it plays it at a lower resolution. And again, it's your internet speed. So if you're listening to if you've got a good internet speed, like 1080, if your videos 1080p or whatever, then your audio will be fine. You'll get no low pass filter. There's no distortion, and because there's no distortion, it means there's no aliasing. It's just the file compression, which does have a slight sound. So there is a difference in sound, but it's not degrading the audio. as much as people think. I always tell people, check your video editor before you add it on YouTube. What I mean by the preview screen is when we're on our YouTube studio. That preview.
It sounds awful on that.
Yeah, always plays at a low resolution.
That's really annoying because I've uploaded things and panicked and thought, that's not what it sounded like to me.
I've done the same.
Right, interesting. I'll have to check Final Cut Pro X because whether it's that or YouTube, I believe compared to a WAV, something is degraded.
Audio
this is me making excuses. So let's check out my mix of James Dupre's Another Love Song.
Nothing on this highway but signs and lines, and too much time to think of you. I keep changing stations every half a mile, but I still don't hear the truth. From my point of view, the world don't need another love song. Too many love songs don't come true. The world don't need another love song, and I don't need another lie from you. Forever sounds simple when it's wrapped up tight in a pretty rhyme and melody. Even when you said you loved me all your life, it was just another fantasy. 'Cause in reality, the world don't need another love song. Too many love songs don't come true. The world don't need another love song, and I don't need another lie from you. Yeah, yeah. I could play them back to back, but it won't change the fact the world don't need another love song. Too many love songs don't come true. The world don't need another love song, and I don't need another love song. Too many love songs don't come true. The world don't need another love song, and I don't need another. No, I don't need another. No, I don't need another lie from you.
DistroKid hosts a range of visually engaging social media promotion tools to help your release stand out from the crowd. Creative and colorful social media cards incorporate your artwork to help your release stand out. These are free to download and can be highly effective promoting your release. DistroKid also offer mini videos, which are free, short, customizable videos incorporating your artwork and a short clip of your track. And if this wasn't enough, DistroKid also have a tool to create a Spotify canvas generator, which is the video that plays in the background when you're playing a song on Spotify. Simply choose a theme and choose from dozens of different creative artwork concepts. These are free to use and great for engaging your audience, available on DistroKid. For an additional subscription of $8.25 a month, you can get your music videos distributed to Apple Music, Vivo, and Tidal, and you'll keep 100% of your royalties. With DistroVid from DistroKid.
I don't have the banjo. Did you notice I've not got the banjo in my mix whatsoever? There's no banjo in my mix.
I didn't notice that, no, but well spotted.
I felt it was like kind of part of the country aesthetic, but I think when I was listening to it, I was like trying to find a place for it. And in Joe's mix, it's quite loud. And I was like, nah, I just want the guitars to hit it. So I think as I was like, just realised it. I was like, oh my God. It's like, I totally forgot there was a banjo in there, but I took it out. So I'm quite glad I did that, because I think my mix maybe just slightly better than yours is the choruses. I think mine just got a little bit more dynamics. I think it's something that you spoke about, the last time when you felt that your mix kind of did that. It was in terms dynamically, it was on like this level plane all the way through, where I intentionally brought stuff down, brought parallels in the choruses, and added in width to the choruses on the guitars, and added like the parallels on the vocals 2 dB up. You know what I mean? And just brought certain elements up and down. I would say I did on the verses, in the first verse, that kind of plinky plonky keyboard thing that they've got going on. I did the noise ash trick that I like to do. But listening to yours, I actually think, I don't know what you did, but I think your treatment's better. I got a little bit more separation with the tremolo, the noise action tremolo. But I listened to yours and I was like, I think I actually prefer what you did. I think that's about it, really. I'm trying to like really, really like critique. I think the choruses could have a little bit more energy in them. I think the electric guitars could have a little bit more bite in them. But again, we spoke about that in the last mix. I think that's something that I always and I don't even do much. It's normally just Smart EQ. It's the only thing that I use still to this day, because I stopped using Smart EQ and a lot of that kind of AI kind of stuff. But I do it on electric guitars if I feel that I could do a little bit of brightening. And normally the preset on it, and then I set it to 100% dynamic, so it's kind of always moving, and it just gives me that kind of top end lift that I like. But the space that you got, I think it's the best mix I've heard for space. I think the way you got everything to sit in a space, and I could hear the automation that you did with the panning with the slide guitar, and it kind of moves around in certain places.
That was one of the main things I wanted to do after the first time.
What I would say is that I would be surprised if somebody said to me that like that's not a working engineer's mix. Personally, in my opinion, I think that's just as good as any other working engineer's mix out there. In my opinion, I think it's definitely, as we said last week, passable for the labels.
A passable label mix.
Yeah.
I think so as well. I'm happy with that. I had a couple of notes myself. There's low something
kind
bothering
of stuff
me.
in the guitars. I think there's some guitars. See, I high-passed my guitars quite a bit.
They're pretty well high-passed.
Right.
It's the bass and the drums, kick drum, and the toms I think I cleaned up on this version. The kick and the toms, there's something building up a fraction too much for me. Maybe it's a balance thing. Maybe the bass could be back a third of half a dB, maybe. And I feel like there's ever so slightly too much compression on the overall mix. Listening back, in
see, for me,
hindsight.
there was a bit in the song, but I was like, mine sounds a little bit cleaner to me. Is the bit where it kind of breaks down, and it's like they've got the guitars going, ding, ching, 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 and the other guitars going like dum, 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 dum. And that section, I was like, there's like a bit of low mid stuff in there, a bit of mud in there. I'm like, that just needs a little bit of a dip, and maybe that's what it is. So if you've high passed it, it's maybe just a bit of a low kind of mid, maybe, don't know, maybe 400, 500, or maybe around that region, where it maybe just been brought down a little bit, because I was like, the definition's lacking a little bit. I could do a little bit of a mid-range lift. So,
okay. I think I'm hearing a problem lower, like 150, 200, but in that section, did you automate that? Did you bring those filters?
How much did you high pass the guitars?
Do you know what? I actually experiment with high passing quite a lot. It always ends up being close, over 150. Well, with acoustics, it's pretty much always up to 200, give or take. If it's on its own, I will automate that. But when things come in, I'll then shift it. And same for electrics. If they're on their own, I'll start at 125 and then probably shift it to at least 150, maybe even 200, sometimes higher.
So I'm thinking maybe that's what I'm hearing with the transition to the chorus, because I only needed little lifts, and even without those kind of little bits of extra automation and parallels kind of coming in, I still felt that there was a bit of a lift. So maybe you are right. Maybe you have kind of over compressed it. Do you think it's over compression, or do you think it's over limiting? Which one?
That's a good question. I think I backed off the limiting. I think we were at definitely -10. I'm aiming to not go above -10 these days.
Yeah, mine's was -11.5 or something like that.
Yeah, 10.5 is ringing a bell. So yeah, that dB extra, less that you limited it, may be helping quite a bit.
Well, how much compression are you doing what are you using for compression on the mix bus?
I'm usually compressing the instrument bus on my SSL, but barely ever more than 2 dB. The rock mix I did last week, that was slamming about 4 dB.
Right. So it's not that then, because if it's only doing a dB or two, that's not a lot at all. But I mean, what's your release like on it? Have you kind of got a slow release, got a faster release?
I've got the classic G-Buzz settings, slowest attack and fastest release.
Right, okay. Yeah,
Set
so
to
yeah, there shouldn't be any
1.5
reason
or
why
2.
that's really kind of clamping down. Because if you had a slow, see on my diode bridge, the Bart Herc one that I use, I use it in stereo on the 2-bus, I've got quite a slowish release because I want to add that glue. So it's kind of a slowish attack just to still let some of the transient through, so it's not kind of choking it. And then a slowish release. I'd say but like medium, slow, fast. Like if you looked at the curve, it's like only like, I don't even think it's 2-to-1 ratio. It's like I checked it in Doctor because I had to get I'm anal as shit, so I had to get the two of them, the 2 ramps. Perfect. So I had the threshold. I knew that the threshold was like perfect on both left and right. And it's such a slow, gradual slope. But again, I give it 1 to 3 dB compression and it just glues everything together really nicely. Adds in those like odd harmonics that like the vintage mode adds. And it just like sounds like using like a kind of a vintage coloured rich Neve diode bridge, like a 33609, but I prefer it.
Yeah, I do like the sound of that plugin, so I should really try Bark's HRK diode bridges, yeah.
These are the things that make me think, right, how long are we going to have to do this podcast for? Because we're not really, we're hyper critiquing each other. Like, I think, would you say that we've now got to a point where we are delivering, mixes good enough to go out there and go in the big bad world and start getting paid clients? Because I've been doing remixes for the album, Jotty's album, and every remix I've done, there was a big gap between me getting the feedback, just getting personal stuff, just us being really busy. So obviously it's been a long time, and I'm like, my mixing approach has changed. So I said to him, look, I'll remix all the tracks again, because it'll only take me like 45 minutes. And I was like, I'll take your feedback notes on board, which weren't really a lot. It was just tiny moves. But I went, I'll remix them all. And, these ones I've been getting first time. It's just like, right, you happy with that? Yeah, Paul, let's move on to the next. Happy, Paul, accepted, move on to the next, move on to the next. Would you say that we've followed the journey to a point now where we are kind of at that kind of passable level? Well, obviously not the Spike Stents, you know what I mean? Most people aren't, but would you say we have kind of learnt enough and experienced enough and we're at quite a decent level now? What would be your thoughts?
Yeah, I believe so. I feel confident in what we're doing now in the last few mixes that we've done. For me, it's a matter of being consistent with that and also getting quick at delivering that. Yeah. That's where people like Spike and M, and those guys, they're so quick at delivering, radio ready mixes. It's remarkable. So I feel like I need a bit more practice and confidence in that area. But ultimately, when I put my mind to it, once I've listened to a couple of my own versions of mixes, I can tweak things and get them in the ballpark. The key for me, the absolute key for me, is never submitting something the day I've mixed it.
Yeah, true.
Always
100%.
Going away, listening on different headphones, coming back, listening on the speakers, my Anchor sound cores, and different headphones, which always give me something. I find that headphones highlight things a decibel here and there that I miss on the speakers, and then vice versa. But I now fall on the speaker version more than the headphone version, and I feel I trust that to translate more. But then I'm, used to mixing on speakers more than headphones.
Yeah.
I think we're in a good place, and I've had some feedback from professionals. I sent the mix to Chura once. He had no feedback. I wasn't sure whether he was being nice or not because he's a very lovely man. A few other industry pros that I know, and yeah, the feedback is minimal. So, and these guys don't have any reason to be nice. I'm encouraging them to be brutal and honest. But as always, Paul, as your recent video has touched on, it's not our opinions that matter. It's the YouTube community's opinion. No,
Correct.
It's not. It's the client's opinion. Yeah. And I think if we're happy to deliver what we think is a good mix to the client, and they have a few personal preferences, that's absolutely fine. And if the clients are happy, then we're doing a good job. That's it.
And I think what I like the most about those two mixes is that I think they're both passable mixes. They're both good mixes. They're both different mixes, but they're not as different as what we used to have. Like we used to have these stark contrasts
in
like,
terms of style and results.
Yeah, So again, that's a Paul Thorne mix and that's an Ed Thorne mix. But,
right. Yeah,
but qualitative wise, I'm like both would, in my opinion, both would easily would get past. You know what I mean? And again, maybe there would be fine tweaks from the client. Again, like the biggest mixers in the world, they'll still get sometimes get a big fucking sheet of feedback notes, but they're both workable mixes. I don't think there's anything that's glaring in both mixes. I don't think there's anything that people would be like, holy shit, like that's completely sounds like a piece of trash. You need to fix all of that. I just think it would be tiny tweaks in both. I think, and it comes down to the pickiness of the artist and their vision and stuff. But yeah, I like the way it's going, and I think we need to be a little bit more confident and a little bit more proud of ourselves, because my wife always tells me, I'm my therapist.
100%.
My therapist is always saying, Paul, you put everything down to luck. I do that quite a lot. I'm like, yeah, I'm just a lucky guy. It's like, you're not lucky. You put the work in, and everything that you achieve in life is down to the work that you put in. And I think where we are just now, and I think even it would just be the case of us saying, I would say we're just as good as working engineers. Like we could go out there, people could pay us for a service, and we could deliver that service. You know what I mean? I'm not saying we're like fucking Grammy winning engineers, but it's a big thing to sit there and say, I feel confident enough to take your money and be able to deliver, your baby back to you in a good condition. And I think that's taken us a long time to get to that point. I mean, are you feeling that way now? Are you starting to feel a little bit more confident now with each mix that you do? You're being a little bit less critical.
I mean, I've got a couple of clients who are drip feeding me songs, which is good, and they're very happy with what I'm doing. I have learnt to stick in my lane. I am a rock, pop, indie, country mix engineer.
Yeah.
I'm not dicking around, wasting anyone's time doing something else.
You're not going to be doing trap beats fucking next week, getting 808s and shit.
Not yet, but I may have an opportunity to practice some of those styles.
There's nothing wrong with practicing as well, you know what I mean? But I think you're right. I think we know our lane, you know what I mean? You're not going to find me doing metal stuff. I don't know, maybe I do a decent metal mix, but I don't listen to it. I'm not a big metal head, you know what I mean? I'm more of a rock guy, indie guy, pop. So that's kind of the stuff that I like to do. Like I imagine if I was to do the Paul Thorne depth and imaging with a metal mix, it'd be like, get him to fuck right now. Ballsy in your face. I want the kick to sound like a paddle, and I want the snare to sound like a fucking machine, and I want the guitars to be there, and I want the vocal to fucking sound it's distorted and right there. You know what I mean?
I'd want to hear that, and I'd want to hear it in Atmos.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, maybe that's going to be my niche. I'm just going to take genres and be like, I'm just going to Paul Third them. That's going to be the term. Yeah, let's Paul Third it. Yeah, let's just go and do something completely different. But sometimes you've got to be that way. Sometimes you've got to be a bit different, but you've still got to be able to deliver what's expected of you from the industry, but still have that bit about you. I mean, CLA's got a sound. Chad Blake has a sound. Spikes, again, I said to Ed that we should definitely do a video on the Peter Gabriel double album. Spikes, and they're all the same songs. Spike Stent mix one, and Chad Blake mix the other, and they sound very, very different. And it's very interesting to hear two people's different take on a mix, because Chad was Peter Gabriel's mixer for the longest time. And then we've got arguably one of the best mixers of all time in Spike Stent. And I think it'd be a great kind of dive into it, and just to be completely objective and just to listen and compare their different mixing decisions. Because at the end of the day, these are two engineers that can stand the test of time in terms of like their work and their experience. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like
that sounds like
Chad's
a
worked
good
with
episode.
a lot of great people. And Spike. So yeah, I think I'm not bothered about the demonetization shit. I'll take the hit of our 14 pence for AdSense. But yeah,
I wonder if
that
Chad's someone we can get on the podcast. We've basically been told it's not even worth asking Spike.
Yeah, I know.
But maybe we can get Chad. Paul, you're good at getting guests on.
I know. I was waiting to say I'm very lucky, but my therapist was like, no. These people contacted you because of what you do and what you stand for, and they think you've got potential. So I don't know. Yeah, I could speak to a few people and be like, "Do you know such and such? Do you know such and such and such and such?" But what I am going to say, just before we go, because again we are doing our waffle at the very end.
It would be good to get some artists on and get their feedback. Because at the end of the day, whatever other audio engineers think, whatever people in the YouTube comments think, it doesn't matter. It's whatever the client thinks.
Yep, 100%. And that's a big part of the journey, and it's something that, again, if you're wanting to go out there and be a working engineer, you could learn from our mistakes. Hopefully you won't learn from our mistakes because we won't make any, hopefully, but it's life, you know what I mean? And we're happy to share our mistakes. But I'd like to think we're in a position now with the podcast where we wouldn't be making the mistakes of like last year, and you know, we're kind of everybody's sitting there like, oh my God, I can't believe he's let the client, I can't believe he's done that to the mix. We wouldn't get in that position, I would like to think, anymore. So again, happy times, happy thoughts.
On that ginger bombshell.
Yeah.
You walked out last time I said that.
I know what, I'm a bigger person now. I have dealt with my shit. I am back in therapy now. It's okay. That's okay, Ed. You could sticks and stones and all that bullshit. You know what I mean? It's okay, Ed. I can take it. I'm happy with my hair color, and you should be happy with the hair color of your beard as well. Okay, we're all in it together, brother. Okay.
It's been emotional. Thanks for listening, guys. See you soon.